How pervasive is opiate drug abuse in our community? It is epidemic. It is an open sore that detracts from our stability. When our community comes together, we can affect change. The mission for the nonprofit organization Securing Our Safety is a citizen-voiced plan to provide for a secure, stable, and sustainable Josephine County. Opiate abuse affects all of us.
Well, the thing I hear most from heroin addicts is their desire to stop, especially when they're in the Josephine County Jail for 24, 48, 72 hours have gone by. They really want to stop, but the withdrawals and the actual physical sickness that they feel as a result of their stopping the heroin use drives them. We do have treatment options available in Josephine County. They're just insufficient to deal with the opiate addiction explosion that we've been experiencing over the last few years.
She was a beautiful soul. She was brought to me with her dad about 3 years of age, and she lived with me and her dad till she was about 7, and she loved everybody and loved animals. She loved dogs and cats, and she was just an absolute joy to be around. And when she got into school, she was very, very active, and she got into karate, and she sang beautiful. She had the most beautiful voice. I don't know how to explain it. She was really very special.
He was a good cross-country runner in high school. Had a big heart, cared about people and didn't like to hurt people's feelings. He worked for Aspire, this final job at the time that he passed away. And he was very protective of his clients.
They're sensitive. Drug addicts are full of feeling, but you don't necessarily see that because the drugs they use help them defend from that.
You've got some addicts that are functioning in our society on the edge. Probably most of their coworkers realize that there's something wrong, but they don't know what. So there are people engaged in all levels of our community, from white collar to blue collar to people on the streets. There's no generalization you can make. Drug addiction is a chronic brain disorder. These people are ill, not evil. They need our help, not our judgment.
She got introduced to painkillers, which led to the horrible dark world of heroin and meth. We were expecting her home Christmas Eve, and I was stuffing her stocking, and I got a phone call. He said, "We got that call. We've always dreaded it. Marnie's overdosed." It was an overdose, and it was her boyfriend shot her up with heroin. 3 days later, as we all sat around watching, they came in and pulled the plug, and I had to watch my granddaughter take her last breath. It's the hardest thing in the world. You see so many changes in them, and then you sit there and you wonder, what could I have done to make this change?
These people do want help. We can always use the sanctions that we have as a way to get them to voluntarily go into these treatment facilities. Give them day-for-day credit on their jail sentence. So instead of spending your time in the Josephine County Jail, you can spend your time in an inpatient treatment facility. So it's more of a tool. The criminal justice system can be used as a tool to get these people to comply with the treatment to the point in which they realize this is the best thing for me. Because it's the short term that we have the problem with. It's not necessarily the long term. If they stay clean and sober for those 30 days, or 60 days, or 90 days in an in-treatment facility, they realize, I can do this. Why would I go back to that? Now you're going to have relapse, we're going to have issues like that, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just getting them started on that road. And right now, we just don't have the tools to do that.
There are 5 treatment programs, Choices Counseling Center being one of them, ADAPT, On Track, Community Corrections, and Options of Southern Oregon. One of the niches that we do not have in Josephine County is medication-assisted treatment. We all refer to a program in Medford, and that hasn't proven to be very successful for us.
We have over 200 people going to Medford for these services. It's a terrible waste. a waste of time, a waste of money. It disrupts their lives entirely. How could they possibly start a new life with having to travel like that every day?
Taking her back and forth every day, 45 miles each way. Not that we resented doing it, but it was difficult, and she knew it was difficult on all of us. And I think it played a big part in the fact that she felt she was trouble to us.
You know, the opiate addict who does not get treatment and or kick it through treatment, the habit itself, is going to reoffend. I mean, it's just a matter of time. You go back to 2010 and we had 4 cases that were related to heroin here in Josephine County. 2011 was up to 22, 2012 up to 37, and then it exploded in 2013 to 123 cases. And so far, year to date, as of September 9th, 2014, we had beaten the numbers in 2013 with 129 cases, and that was still with 4 months remaining in the year. These cases that I just referenced are related to actual heroin charges. Somebody either in possession of heroin at the time that they had law enforcement contact, somebody dealing heroin, manufacturing heroin. They are specifically heroin related charges. All heroin related charges are felonies.
By the time I was 12 years old, I was smoking cigarettes and marijuana, and I was using alcohol on a pretty regular basis. By the time I was 15, I was using meth, and by the time I was 16, I was using meth intravenously. That taboo was part of what drew me.
I was suspecting that he was smoking pot or something like that. I didn't suspect that he was doing heroin. I went looking for him because Laura and I were worried about him, and I could spot Cody from a long way off. And we went right over there. He had been on meth at that time, and he was really grindy and real, and he was in a withdrawal. Cody was like 5'8.5", maybe 5'9". At this time, I would say he weighed under 120 pounds, which Cody was very muscular. He was miserable, I could tell, and he just started yelling and crying. And Laura goes, "Let's go to the hospital." He was crying out. I mean, it was really, it was bothering him. I mean, he wanted help, but there was no help to be found. There was nothing in Grants Pass, there was nothing in Medford. This really bothered Laura and I, because I'm going, are you kidding me? We've got this type of problem. They're going to try to find help somewhere, and there's nothing here.
There are younger opiate addicts who are kind of new into the addiction that don't have a criminal history because they haven't been caught with anything yet. And sometimes when they get caught their first time and they just get a PCS heroin charge, just a possession charge, the ideal situation would be we get those people, those young people with their first PCS charge, use that as an opportunity to get them into a treatment and deal with the addiction right then and there. Because if we don't, what's going to happen is they will eventually, the addiction will lead to stealing. Somebody who's, shooting up once a day or smoking it once a day will gradually go to 2 times a day, and then to 3 times a day, and then to 4 times a day. And sooner or later, you're going to cut off all ties with your family and friends because they're not going to deal with your lies. They're done with you stealing from them, so they kick you out and break contact with you, and then you're left going into stores and stealing. And then they're going into my and your house in the middle of the night and stealing the things that we work hard for. And so eventually, they're going to find themselves coming through the system so many times that they're going to have that big charge that's then going to send them upstate to DOC. And we're going to be spending a lot of money in order to house them in prison when we should be dealing with it at the first time we catch them within the criminal justice system.
For every dollar that's spent in treatment and getting people into drug programs, we save $3 on healthcare costs and enforcement costs. So it's a great investment for the community. If we continue to shun them and isolate them, the problem will only perpetuate. We must not turn away. We must look straight on.
I had heard somewhere that it was really dangerous to withdraw while you're pregnant, and I don't know if I used that as an excuse to continue using I mean, part of me, sure, I was genuinely scared, but it was also an excuse to continue using, and I did for several months. I was about 6 months pregnant when I really started to consider getting help. I had thought about treatment. I didn't know about methadone replacement therapy.
The number of pregnant women using opiates in Josephine County has increased steadily over the past decade, and now, over the past couple of years, has remained steady at upwards of 4%. The babies, they tend to be very fussy. They have difficulty feeding. They don't want to latch well. They oftentimes, over a period of even just a day, will have a significant amount of weight loss. They're very irritable. They don't sleep well. And those are just some of the early signs. There aren't a lot of resources in our community. I saw someone today actually who told me she was using illicit methadone, so she wasn't getting prescribed it, she was getting it off the street or from friends or whatever. They're generally in need or desiring some type of intervention or help.
Because I was pregnant, they told me that I had to be on methadone. You know, I didn't know that, you know, it was used, that pregnant women used it to keep them, you know, safe while they were pregnant. And during that time, I really put my whole self into my treatment. My recovery became my life. While I was there at the treatment center, I had my son. Sometimes the newborns will show signs of withdrawal and sometimes they won't. But in my baby's case, he did. He did show signs of withdrawal, so he was put on morphine.
The only thing that we can do is give the baby what it's lacking, and that's morphine, you know, some type of opioid. It's not really correlated how much opioid or what type of opioid the mother was on during pregnancy to the degree of neonatal abstinence syndrome that the baby experiences. Pathways to Wellness would provide not only a physical structure to house these women and their unborn children, but would also allow several options for treating pregnant women and their opiate addiction. Complete detoxification would be one of these options. If successful, this would save the healthcare system upwards of $53,000 per newborn in costs to monitor and manage babies that are born to opiate-addicted mothers.
He was very healthy, and now he is a very happy, healthy 6-year-old boy and smart as a whip. So I was very blessed.
One of the things that we are talking about in this community is making sure that we have a continuum of care. If you want folks with addiction problems to be successful, there has to be a continuum. And that starts with a solid assessment in outpatient, maybe a referral to a residential or an inpatient program or medication-assisted treatment to get stable. That would also include some detox maybe somewhere, just to kind of get stable. And then transitional housing to move back through to actually prepare to go back into the community. One of the things we struggle with right now with particularly opiate addicts is that we can't really get them stable. They're very difficult to get stable in a pure outpatient setting. And so we're constantly trying to find a detox bed or a residential bed being a bed somewhere out of a person's environment where they are supervised 24/7 and have to basically maintain a regimen that would help them stay clean and sober for a period of time.
Cody said, I think I can do this myself. Within 2 or 3 weeks, he had a job. He started working at Aspire. Cody was one of those guys, if he worked for you, he gave his all. What had happened was Cody got in a fight with his girlfriend. He drank all of that whiskey. Then he smoked, maybe 1 or 2 of those Percocets. It's a very strong opiate. He put a depressant on a depressant. He probably got mad at himself and said, I don't want to get back into this stuff. And he had a pistol and he just shot himself. He was not only my son, but he was one of my best friends. And so I miss him a lot. And it's tough on Laura and I, but we have each other and we have our daughter. My daughter has problems with this too, because she was so close with Cody. And It just, it hurt all of us. Cody didn't realize how much he was loved. He caused a big hole, in a lot of people's lives.
They have lives, they were born, they have desires and fears just like all of us. For an addict to recover without a support system is nearly impossible. The chemical dependency is simply a response to pain. A really huge factor in me finding help was through my parents, first and foremost. They offered me the opportunity to go to a rehabilitation center, and there I was able to receive the treatments and the tools that I needed to make the necessary changes in my life. Today, I'm participating actively in the most important aspect of my life, which is my marriage to my wife, Kelly, whom I love dearly. I recently opened my own acupuncture clinic here in Grants Pass, Oregon. I'm in the process of becoming a licensed yoga instructor, and I'm currently taking flamenco guitar lessons. I see this recovery center as providing many of the necessary tools that I found helpful both in my own recovery as well as tools that others have found helpful in their recovery.
Our vision to have a treatment and rehabilitation center, Pathways to Wellness, will address the problem at its very core. Here, patients will be administered methadone and Suboxone to help them get off the streets and stabilized. And this will lead to significant harm reduction both to the individual and the community at large. We'll have a detox facility to treat people medically while they withdraw from substances. We'll have an inpatient facility where people can stay 30, 60, 90 days to learn the skills they need to start their life anew. We will implement programs to teach them how to cook and garden, classes on nutrition, fitness, yoga, mindfulness, and more. We'll have counselors, of course, to listen, but also to offer sound advice and vocational rehabilitation.
There needs to be some type of a center where they know how to treat people and get them off the garbage, get them off this heroin or meth.
I think we need the extended community's support in order to deal with this problem. It's not an out-of-town problem, it's our problem.
People that are addicted to anything can be treated and they can recover.
Methadone saved my life. It gave me a second chance. It opened doors for me that very well may have remained shut. I got my bachelor's of education in the Family and Human Services program at the U of O. And I just graduated that program in the spring of 2014. My future looks bright and wonderful and exciting, and I can't wait to launch my career and, and get in and help people and be a part of something big, something bigger than me. Yeah.
The goal is to create an integrative, medically assisted treatment center with a local continuum of care, guided by medical and allied health professionals and supported by our community. The result being efficient, effective, empathetic treatment of opiate-addicted patients. I endorse these goals, and I encourage your participation.
Josephine County is indeed a paradise. Our mountains, trees, waters, some would argue that these are our greatest resources. But an older, wise woman reminded me of something critical. She's nearly 80 now, and her eyes still sparkle, and she still carries the heart of a child. And she reminded me that, in fact, our greatest resource is our youth. Our youth, our humanity, and our capacity to love. We can do better. We must do better. Let us set the bar high and see where we may fly together.